Hey you guys, this video is going to be all about how to brew your own kombucha at home and have an endless supply of home brewed fermented tea that you can access anytime you want. So brewing kombucha is really simple, but sometimes simple doesn't mean it's easy. So I'm gonna really break it down for you and just give you a step-by-step. And I also want to say too, I'm by no means like a kombucha superstar expert. There's a lot of people online that have really good information. I just have been brewing on and off for the last several years, and I, through trial and error, have learned what works best and what doesn't. And if you do want to know all the hows and the whys and the nitty gritty, I can definitely give you some resources. This is more just a tutorial on how to get started brewing. And especially if you're more of a visual learner, I know sometimes reading instructions is not, depending on how your brain processes information, doesn't quite translate into what you're doing. So hopefully if you're more of a visual hands-on learner, this video will be helpful. And we're gonna start by looking at what we need. You can't make kombucha without a SCOBY and starter tea. So before you do anything, make sure that you have access to a SCOBY and 1 to 2 cups of starter tea. This batch we're gonna make is going to brew a full gallon of kombucha. So for a gallon size job, you want 1 to 2 cups of starter tea. I was able to get this from someone local that had extra SCOBYs. I just posted on the Nextdoor app and several people let me know that they had some. So every time you make a batch of kombucha, a new SCOBY grows. So if you start doing this regularly, you'll have extra SCOBYs that you can then give to other people that want to brew. So make sure you have your SCOBY, and you definitely need the starter liquid as well. So make sure if you do get a SCOBY from someone, they give you both. We also need sugar. This is what the SCOBY feeds on and eats to ferment the tea. Purified water. So I just picked up a gallon jug, but you could, I don't know if you have a Brita filter. I do, but I just wanted to be extra cautious. So this is a full gallon jug. I have organic black tea here. You can use green tea. I found, especially because this is my first batch with this new SCOBY, black tea for whatever reason seems to ferment easier or quicker. So I'm going to use black tea this time around. This tea that I got with my SCOBY is raspberry tea. So I think the black and the raspberry will be just fine together. So we'll need about 6 tea bags for the size that we're using. I'm going to be doing and showing you how to do continuous brew kombucha. I suppose whether you're doing continuous brew or batch brew, the starting process is the same. But what I have here is a jar with a hole at the bottom with a spigot. And I have I'll explain why this is soaking in just a minute here. But I have my hardware, my spigot stuff in that bowl right now. So I'm going to do a continuous brew. This is also something that you'll want to probably look up online. Someone else can explain it better than I can, but I just prefer using this. It's a little more low maintenance, and it makes more kombucha. So find your glass or porcelain or barrel or wood barrel vessel. And then you'll need a stirring spoon. I prefer wood. I don't know. I think sometimes the metal can interact weird with the SCOBY, so I just use wood to be safe. I have a measuring cup for my water for my tea. And then last but not least, vinegar. And this is actually where we're going to start today. So our whole kombucha making process starts with vinegar. So this is to sanitize anything that could possibly come in contact with your SCOBY. I'm going to wipe down my countertops. I'm going to wipe down my wooden spoon. I'm going to wipe inside of my glass container that my tea is going to go into. And the hardware that I showed you in the last video, the little black spigot and all the little rubber pieces, that is soaking in warm water and vinegar. I actually ran my glass container and all of my hardware in the dishwasher yesterday, and I ran it on a super hot water and hot rinse cycle just to kill any potential germs. So it's already clean, but I have gotten mold on my SCOBY before, and I do not want to take any chances because when it goes moldy, there's no repairing it. You have to throw it away. So I'd rather be safe than sorry and do a little extra prep work in the beginning and just make sure that everything is clean. The reason I'm using vinegar and not soap or bleach or anything like that is because that can kill the SCOBY. And it is a fermented tea and it has good bacteria in it, and those things can kill the bad bacteria as well. So distilled white vinegar is a natural disinfectant, germ killer, but it's not going to harm your SCOBY. So I'm gonna finish cleaning up. I just did my spoon. I'm gonna finish wiping down a couple more of these things, and then we'll get to the actual brewing here. We have to start the whole kombucha making process with brewing tea. So I'm going to measure out 4 cups of my purified water into a pot, and you could use a tea kettle if you wanted, whatever works for you. I'm just doing it this way so I can put the tea bags right in my pot. So I'm gonna do 4 cups of my purified water, that's 2. And then we'll go for 4. And then I'm just gonna let this boil on the stove. And then when it gets hot, I'll steep my tea bags. So for this 4 cups of water, the recipe I'm following, by the way, is from Kombucha Camp with a K. So Kombucha with a K, Camp with a K. Really simple starter recipe. So this is what I'm following. So I can write it down, but if you want to go straight to the stores, Kombucha Camp is where I got my recipe from. So this 4 cups of water that I'm going to boil, we're going to use 4 to 6 tea bags. I always use 6 because I like it a little bit stronger. So that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to throw this on the stove. My water just got to a rolling boil, so I added 6 tea bags. And then I'm gonna steep those. I'm gonna set my timer on my microwave here for 15 minutes and let that absorb into the water. And then after 15 minutes of steeping, we're gonna move it into our actual brewing vessel. My tea is done steeping, so I'm gonna fish out these tea bags, and here we go. We got 6 in here. We're gonna take these guys out, and then while it's still really hot, I'm gonna add a cup of cane sugar. So a cup of sugar sounds like a lot, but the SCOBY eats it and converts it, so it's actually pretty low sugar content, especially if you let it ferment longer. So this is a full cup of organic cane sugar, and then I'm going to dissolve it as best I can. If it doesn't fully dissolve, I'm about to move this into the glass vessel. So when I add the rest of my water, because this is really concentrated tea, when I add the rest of it, all the sugar should dissolve. I'm going to add my hot tea to my brewing vessel. This has my cup of sugar dissolved in it. And then from here, I'm going to top off the hot tea with maybe the rest of my water. We'll find out, because when you fill up, and so far, there's no SCOBY, no starter tea. This is just our black tea and our purified water. So when you fill your jar up, you want to make sure that you leave some room at the top, because we still have to add our starter liquid and our SCOBY. So I think I'm actually going to be just fine here. I'll probably leave it right about there, so there's a little water left over. And once I have my SCOBY and my starter tea in there, if I have a little more space at the top, I'll fill it up, but I want to make sure there's extra room. So we're actually just going to let this sit for a while and let the tea come to room temperature. You do not want to put your SCOBY in hot tea. So go find something to do around the house, go maybe clean up your workspace, and then we're going to come back and check on this and make sure that it's settled to about room temperature before we do anything else. It's been about 40 minutes, so I just let my tea cool to room temperature. And before I handle my SCOBY, this is our next step. We're gonna add our SCOBY and then our starter tea. I'm gonna do a vinegar rinse of my hands since I'm gonna be touching him. And I'm just gonna use this vinegar water solution that I had my hardware soaking, and I'm just gonna pour it over my hands just to clean them in case there's any germs. All right, so we're gonna take SCOBY out, and ooh, it smells so good in here. All right, so here's our SCOBY. So I'm gonna put him right in the jar, and you can tell I can tell this is his underside just because it's a little bit of a slimier texture, and then the harder side is on top. So I'm gonna put him right inside, and then it's okay if he sinks down. Well, he's pretty much hanging at the top. So he's in there now, and then I just out of curiosity want to measure how much starter liquid is in here. So I'm just going to, I could just dump this in from the baggie, but I'm gonna put it in my measuring cup that I used for my water, and just see how much this is so I know. Okay, perfect. So this is 2 cups of starter liquid, and you can see the stuff in here. There's more. This is probably like a baby SCOBY that's starting to form. So I'm gonna pour our starter tea right on top. Ooh, nice. And this is really the fuel that's going to start the whole fermentation process. And then I do have a little extra room in here, so I'm just gonna top off with water. And you do not want to fill your container fully to the top. You want at least a couple inches of room on top so that the SCOBY can breathe. So you don't want it to be at the very tip top. So I was able to finish my whole gallon. And then I'm gonna give, where's my spoon? I'm gonna give it all a quick stir just to move it around. So it's okay if SCOBY's like now he's hanging out on the side here because I poured stuff on top of it. So he doesn't have to be right at the top. What's gonna happen is this ferments, a new SCOBY's gonna form on top. And that one you wanna have on top, but this guy can just float wherever he wants to be, and he might move as things start shifting and brewing in here. So the last step, this is all done. So how easy was that? It's a little bit time consuming, but it's very simple, like I said. So he's done. The last thing we need to do is you want to make sure that the top is covered, but it has to be a breathable material. And I will tell you right now, do not use cheesecloth because it can still get germs in it, and fruit flies can crawl through cheesecloth, and I've learned that the hard way as well. So I'm using, you can use either like a paper towel, a coffee filter. I'm actually using an old, really thin cotton shirt. It's breathable, it's thin, but nothing can get inside of it. So I'm just gonna slip this right over the top, and then I'm gonna secure it with a rubber band. And then you want to keep him out of direct sunlight, but somewhere where there's fresh airflow. Because the weather's getting a little cooler, it might take him a little bit longer to ferment, but I'm gonna leave him probably on top of the fridge. And if it gets colder, you can use a heating pad you want it around 75 to 85 degrees. So anywhere around then. So I'm gonna move him into his home above the fridge. This is your kombucha making 101. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and you can always ask me any questions if you have them. And then of course, Kombucha Camp is a great resource. That's where I basically learned everything I know. So you could always go directly to the source. Yeah, have fun and happy brewing. And P.S. You'll want to take a taste test of this in about a week or so. And then a lot of this is preference. So if after a week you feel like it tastes like the right balance of sweet and sour, you can start bottling it then. If you want it a little more tart, or if you feel like the sugar content hasn't quite gone down enough, then you can wait a little bit longer, and then every 3 to 5 days, just take a little squirt and see what you think. So this is just to get you started brewing. if you want to know how the whole bottling process works and how to refill what was taken out of your jar after you bottle it, that's where I will send you online. Kombucha Camp, I'm telling you, she's got the best info, and you can see on the continuous brew, and she also has, I think, a whole section on the other type of brewing. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it here today. This is my info I can give you, and I feel confident that I know what I'm talking about enough. The other stuff, go online. That's what I'm gonna do after I decide that this is ready to bottle. I'm gonna go back online and just do my research. So enjoy, bye.